For the first craft project, we're using an upcycled yogurt jar with the labels removed. And these are fairy lights. I really like these ones because they have a timer on them. And I'm just poking a hole in the lid. And then you're going to string your lights through it and put them inside the jar and leave the little remote piece just kind of hanging out. We're going to take a piece of cardboard and cut it to fit over the lid and make channels with hot glue. The reason for this is because you kind of want to protect the wire and glue on a piece of styrofoam for a head because we're making a snowman. This is some tulle. This one has glitter on it and it's white. I wasn't sure if I would like the glitter, but I actually kind of liked it. That was the only one they had when I picked it out. And just take your tool and cut a big square of it. It's actually doubled here. And tightly wrap it around the jar and use a piece of, this is like a cotton cord or whatever, to tie it off. And then you're going to stretch the tool and get it a little bit taut. And then you're going to do the same thing and gather it around the styrofoam ball, which is the head of the snowman. And we're going to tie that off and clip it. And we're using a piece of ribbon here. You can use whatever you want. You could use like a shred of fabric or something like that. Also, if you don't have any tulle, you can use fabric that's thinner or just leave the bottom part without fabric and only put fabric around the head part. So I'm just using a wired ribbon and I kind of liked that it was wired. It helped like mold the scarf really easily. And I used some hot glue to secure the ends under and then a little bead of glue at the neck. Well, you don't need to glue the fairy lights in place. You can just tuck them in the scarf. This is a piece of black felt, or not felt, fleece. And you don't have to sew it. You can just cut it. And I'm using some hot glue here and you can just fold it over and make a cuff. And we're making a beanie. And secure it to the front. That would be like the forehead first. And wrap it around. And I liked it to go kind of downwards, so it's not just sitting on the top of the head like a cap, more like an actual beanie would sit on your head. And carefully just glue it around to secure it, and make sure that you don't glue over the battery pack or the wire of the fairy lights. Just keep it out of the way and then move it back in place after you're done gluing in that section. The next thing you're going to do is just turn it around and sort of gather in the same fashion and tie it off with a string. And you don't need to trim off any of the tulle, just tuck it in, sort of like a stuffing to make the hat have extra shape. And after you tie it off, take your scissors and cut the fleece to make a sort of a fringe, just like a pom-pom tassel would look on a beanie. The next thing you're going to want to do is glue some buttons to the front. And you can use a lot of different things for this part of the step. I'm using some wooden buttons here. Now you could use black wooden buttons or plastic buttons. You could paint your buttons to be whatever color you wanted. You could glue something else like a piece of cardboard that you cut in a round shape, or a pine cone, or a small jingle bell. There's a lot of options you could do. The next thing you see here is I'm taking a piece of just cardstock that I saved off of a food box and putting some craft paint on it, a black section and an orange section, and let it dry for a few minutes. And take a hole punch and punch a bunch of pieces out and use that to glue on for the eyes and the mouth. And then just cut sort of a triangle with the rounded ends to make a carrot looking nose. You could actually just color it with markers if you didn't have paint, or use a colored paper. I decided to add this little piece of holly there. I thought it dressed it up nicely. And that's it for the snowman. For this next craft project, we're going to be taking a can that's a bean can, and the lid's already been removed and the can was washed, and I'm just using the same can opener to remove the bottom. And I really like this can opener. I think it's by Good Cook, and it has like a safety edge where it takes the lid off and it doesn't make it sharp, which is really nice because I save all the lids to make for ornaments or other craft projects. And you can wear gloves for this step if you wanted to. It's not super sharp or anything, but just be careful and gently smash the can together at one end, like to pinch it. I love a little tiny hammer in my craft tool kit, and I use that to just kind of smash it and flatten it a little bit. The top doesn't need to be perfectly round still. You want it to be a little bit flat, more of like an envelope, because it's going to be a wall hanging. And I'm using an awl, but you need something sharp to poke some holes into the can as well. And then go ahead and paint it with whatever color you'd like. I'm doing this brown chalk finish style of paint. And this print is from the Graphics Fairy blog. They have free images that you can print and use in your craft projects. And if you've not heard of that site, you should check it out because it's really awesome. They do have a premium membership that you can pay for more things. So this is a piece of cardboard. It's corrugated. I have it flipped over and I'm drawing a hand-drawn snowflake stencil, and I'm going to cut that out with some scissors. And it was just left over from something that came in the mail, but I thought it looked like faux metal, faux corrugated metal, I guess you could say. So I took a piece of little copper wire and glued it to the back, and then I'm painting it with the same Aleene's glitter snow that I used on the tin can as well. And then after you let it dry, you can add in some floral foam and start sticking in some pieces of floral. I did glue it down, the foam into the can. And I'm using my favorite hot glue ever, which I always mention. It's by Surebonder. And it has an excellent hold. If you haven't tried it, you should. And these are just leftover berry picks from last year. I always buy them at like Hobby Lobby. And sometimes you have a craft project and you have little bits and pieces left over, and this is a perfect way to use them up on other little craft projects like this. I've heard florists say when they make an arrangement that you want to have fillers, spillers, and thrillers, which is like the middle, the top, and some spilling over. I don't have a ton of stuff spilling over, but some little things are poking out the side. And that's it for that project with the snowflake in there, and I could not help but string some fairy lights around it. This next one, I'm using a piece of leftover cardboard from a cat food container, and I'm just hot gluing it into a cone shape. And I'm also going to take a little rectangle of cardboard and glue it across, kind of like an extra reinforcement strap, because it is like really thick and I don't want it to like pop open. But this glue is really good and has a really nice hold. And once you get your cone shape cut out, just trim the bottom off. And it's a nice heavy weight. You could use a cereal box or any similar style of box, but it's nice and heavy weighted and it stands up and it doesn't feel like it's going to smash or anything like that. After that, I took apart a wreath that I had handmade, and it's kind of older where it's got a little messed up. So I just removed all of the leaves, and they come in different sizes. There's some little tiny leaves and a lot bigger ones. And I'm gluing them around the cone starting at the bottom and layering it in the rows all the way to the top. And I'm using the bigger leaves towards the bottom and the smaller leaves towards the top of the cone, and just kind of graduate the size as you go up. Now you could mix them throughout if you wanted to. And I also used some leaves around the bottom of the cone to sort of tuck around, so there was no exposed cardboard and you don't need to paint it or anything like that. And for a little added touch, I'm wrapping around some pipberry garland, and you could wrap anything you wanted around there. A piece of jute twine, something gold. For this craft project, I'm taking this basket. This is thrifted, and I'm adding a fresh coat of paint, and this is an English Ivy craft paint. Just paint the whole basket and let it sit. You can get really nice baskets very inexpensively at the thrift store, and it's perfect to craft with because you won't feel terrible if you mess it up or anything. So this is another image from the Graphics Fairy blog, and it's a red cardinal. And I printed these on my EcoTank printer, which I love because it barely uses any ink. And I Mod Podged it to a piece of cardstock and let it dry. And I cut it to fit that little perfect area in the front. I didn't even need to glue it or anything. It just stuck right in there on the basket, but you could attach it with wire or hot glue or anything if you needed to. And you could put all kinds of images. You could put like gingerbread man, a snowman scene, anything like that you want. And I decided to add some ribbon. You can use whatever ribbon that you like that goes with your decor. Black and white buffalo check is also nice, which I was thinking about, or some red and cream ticking stripe. Anyways, I'm also using some little bits and pieces of greenery to glue around the little cardinal on the front, and another piece of that holly. And I have these logs, I think they're birch logs, and I'm always looking for a way to like put them in the decor. And I just threw in some greenery picks, and that's it. You could add some little fairy lights to this as well. Thank you.